Now I want to bring in Democratic Congressmember Joe Morelle. Congressmember Morelle, great to see you. So MAGA Mike Johnson shutting down Congress last week a little bit early as Democrats were poised to push forward and discharge this war powers resolution, which would have joined the Senate, would have had the Senate and the House both saying that Donald Trump's war, this unlawful war in Iran, is unauthorized. MAGA Mike said, he tried to hold another vote. He did all these procedural maneuvers. And then because it's a privileged resolution, he can't block it. So the plan, I guess, was a very Trumpy move, which is just, I guess, delay it. But you can't delay a privileged resolution forever. So let's start there, because when the House comes back, I don't want people to forget the war powers resolution's there. MAGA Mike's going to do whatever he can to try to block it as this thing continues to drag on. And then you have the IRS waivers from Trump and the slush fund of $1.8 billion that Trump is creating. But let's start with the war powers resolution. And, what do you expect to happen when the House comes back?
Well, he didn't have enough votes. You're right. So rather than face the music, he just pulled the plug and sent everyone home. It'll be interesting. It's going to be a very close vote. And, given what's happening now in the Senate, which is there's a full blown revolt, which is only going to get worse now. First it was Bill Cassidy. Now it's John Cornyn. I think Trump is on the verge of losing control of the Senate Republican caucus. And the House is going to be interesting as well. He went against Tom Massey. He's gotten him basically retired. He's got a few more months now as we finish the session, but there's no way to know how, when the president does these erratic, reckless things, how they're going to, what the result is going to be. And the war powers resolution really needs to pass. I mean, we are now started in the end of February. We're in March, April, May. We're almost through 3 months, almost 12, 13 weeks of activity in Iran. And the Republicans keep saying, well, we changed the name. It's not Epic Fury anymore. It's something else. And no, we have a ceasefire. So the war powers resolution, 60-day limitation isn't in effect, which is baloney. I mean, if you just had to change the name of the operation, I don't really think that's what the authors of the War Powers Act intended. They wanted an accounting by the commander-in-chief on why United States Armed Forces are engaged in military action without congressional authorization. It's really interesting. So I asked Secretary of Defense, not War, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, as did others during the Appropriations Subcommittee hearing on defense, when are we getting an accounting for what's been spent? This was 2 weeks ago. He said the department has already given its information to Office of Management and Budget. You should be getting it shortly. That was 2 weeks ago. We still don't have any information. And as I've been saying, General Washington gave more timely information to the Continental Congress in 1776 than we're getting out of the Department of Defense in 2026 to the Congress. It is infuriating. So, that's part of it. That's part of why the war powers resolution should pass, to get some accounting, not just for Congress, but more importantly to the American people.
They lie about everything. And what's been really concerning, we know that Hegseth and the Trump regime, we know they lie about everything. But what really has gotten me very, nervous is when I saw Democratic Congressmember Crow and others cross-examining CENTCOM. And, these are people who are not supposed to be political. And, and they were up there not even acknowledging stuff like showing no quarters is a war crime and very basic stuff. And all Congressmember Crow said is this what the words say? And they don't even acknowledge that. And then we hear a lot of, information of the United States struck the Strait of Hormuz, missile targets and boats the other day. And then Iran publishes, here's a photo of the MQ-9 Reaper that we just shot down. They release footage of radar images showing that they're able to detect our F-35s now, which are supposed to be undetectable by Iranian radar. And we don't hear it. We, the public, don't hear anything. Do you, the members of Congress, know? Do you know what's going on there at all?
No, we know less. It's interesting. I've been meeting, as we've been on this break, back home with local groups. So, people are working with immigration and refugee status, people who are in community dealing with Medicaid and SNAP beneficiaries. And they'll say, what do you hear? And I say, I'm going to hear more from you on what's going on the ground and what you're experiencing than I'd ever hear from the Trump administration. I mean, they just don't share information, partly because Donald Trump doesn't care about reporting to Congress because Donald Trump has no respect for Congress. I mean, that's become increasingly clear. Now, people might watch and observe and say, you know, okay, so that's a fight between one group of people, the Congress, and another group of people, the Trump administration. Why does it matter to us? But the truth is, the Congress, if you're not reporting to the Congress, that means you're not reporting to the American people. That's how this works. That's why the House of Representatives even exists, is to make sure people who get to hold us to account every other year, that they have information that's done through their elected representatives. So he just doesn't care. And look, this is now supposedly in the hands of Russ Vought, the Office of Management and Budget. Who knows when we'll get an accounting? And while we were sitting, this is 2 weeks ago, so the information is old, but you know, the Pentagon had been saying 25 billion. The comptroller of the Department of Defense said 29 billion. He jumped the number up by $4 billion. I think it was even a surprise to Secretary Hegseth. But that's not the way to report in the modern era to the Congress and to the American people. And think about what we could have done with what I'm sure is now well north of $30 billion. You know, tax credits for health insurance under the Affordable Care Act. We could have put money into child tax credits. We could have put money into building roads and bridges. We could have put money into cancer research. I mean, the list goes on. And we're no better off today than we are relative to Iran. In fact, I think it's pretty objectively arguable that we're worse off. The Strait is no longer in control. Ships aren't going through it. The price of gas is through the roof. The president, which criticized and ridiculed Barack Obama for the JCPOA, is going to end up probably with a negotiated deal that is less helpful to American interests than the one he ridiculed for years. He'll have an answer for it, of course, which is his own reality. But, you know, Americans will not be safer, will be more in harm's way.
Like, this is what he did in his private dealings before he was in office. I mean, the cases against him were he would just make up numbers.
Yeah.
And when he wanted to downplay the numbers, it would often be a multiple of 5 to 10 or 20 times less than what it was. And when he wanted to raise it, he would just, you know, say something that was 30 million was 2 billion. And so he's doing that. He's doing that here now with the country. And what I worry is a Trump 29 billion probably is not 30 billion. It's probably 200 billion when you actually factor in just the direct and semi-incidental and consequential. That doesn't even bring us to the fact that what are the consequences on the bond market? What are the consequences on then the interest that the Treasury has to pay? You know, I mean, that could literally be in the trillions. And then I saw recently a chart that basically says because of the supply shock with oil, we don't get, if this ends today, we don't get to where gas was from the Biden to Trump transition until 2032.
Yeah.
If it ends today, 2032. And I heard that and I said, how else can you deal with this supply shock? And it makes sense, though, with the Strait of Hormuz being shut. I mean, everybody warned us against that.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting that I saw oil prices came down over the weekend slightly, crude price. And I think, who listens to this guy? I mean, serious people with serious economic interests think that the price of oil is going down because Donald Trump tweets out that he's near a framework of a deal. And then 2 hours later is backtracking. I mean, this is what he does all the time. And to your point, even when he was in the private sector, in the business world, and people thought he's such a genius. I mean, the guy went bankrupt multiple times because he has no real interest, doesn't meet his obligations, doesn't pay workers, never follows through on his commitments. I mean, it should be no surprise to us that he does the same exact thing as the president of the United States. I mean, you can't change your stripes. He is who he is, and this is how he treats it. Unfortunately now, rather than just having an impact on Trump and the Trump world and the Trump organization and their clients, it's now affecting not just the United States, but it's affecting the global economy in ways that, to your point, I mean, that's an astonishing, I had not seen that. That's an astonishing number. That means another 5 to 6 years of gas prices before they get to the level they were at pre-Trump. That's shocking. That'll have enormous impacts that'll be felt not just at the pump, although that's important, but it's also going to be reflected in rising prices for food, housing, all across the board, because everything is dependent on an economy that's so built in the fossil fuel world, sadly.
Right. And then you think 6 years from now, what does the world look like? Because every single day, and this doesn't get covered on the way the media gamifies who's up, who's down, but the entire security architecture of the world
Yeah.
is being changed. I mean, if we observe what's happening and we see the meetings that Xi Jinping is taking, including sandwiching Donald Trump right before Putin and right after Aragchi, and then bringing in Pakistan. And I know Trump's very trustworthy of Pakistan and has destroyed the relationship with India, but India is also committed to the BRICS bloc relationship, where there was meetings before Donald Trump's trip to China. And this architecture that's being formed is one where America first is America alone. China's filling the void, and you have the middle powers, Canada, European Union joining. They see Ukraine as really necessary also to their security architecture, rightfully so, because they've developed the most technological capabilities out there, and the US shun them. And it just seems like we've got this loser, Trump, chasing authoritarians, Xi Jinping and Putin, who are like laughing. Like, our guy wants to be in the bad boy club, and the bad boys don't want him in the club, and they're mocking this guy, and they're like, ha, ha, ha. And then all of our actual friends, they've abandoned us, and they're friends with each other. And to me, this is like what Trump passes on to the
Right.
next person. And then that person, let's say it's a Democratic president, then they get blamed and they're like, oh, look what you've done. You've screwed. It's like, nah, this guy's doing it. And so I guess let me, as we chat this out, how do we get out of that cycle? How do we get out of that loop? Because, your Republican colleagues, they're fiscal hawks, they're hawks again, and they're hawk this, hawk that. And these guys are the biggest losers who sold out our country, and you know what they're going to do. So how do we just say to, your idiot colleagues, no offense to them, or your traitorous colleagues, no offense. Like, how do you call them out and go, dude, what are you doing? You just screwed us so much.
Well, think about this. I saw, Secretary Rubio saying, well, this nuclear deal with Iran, you can't do it on the back of an envelope. It's not like that. It takes a long time to negotiate. And yet, when they were all on Fox News as, news people, whatever they call them, they make everything sound like it's so simple. JCPOA was a disaster. We gave money to Iran, which, by the way, that was not the deal, but okay, they got to say it. Meanwhile, the president has lifted sanctions on Iranian oil. He's going to lift more sanctions. He's going to put a lot more money in the hands of the Iranian regime. And to your point, what happens even if we have a realistic president, like a real president again? Let's say one that's thoughtful, understands the global stage, understands the dynamics of relationships and how to be pro-democracy. In many ways, because of the damage Trump has done, even if someone credible came forward and was elected president, do they trust this anymore? Do they not say to themselves, well, yeah, this worked for a few years, but then we get, another Trump-light person who destroys it all again? So our credibility really has been damaged. And I think it will take, decades, if ever, for people to trust us the way they do or the way they did. And I don't mean just under Biden, under George Bush, under George Bush the first, under Bill Clinton. I mean, American presidents generally have tried to do the right thing, whether we agree or disagree with them, but not Donald Trump. He has no interest in the public facing responsibilities he has. I don't even think it occurs to him. I don't think he clearly said, I don't care. I don't consider the interest of the American people and their financial fortunes when I'm dealing with Iran. I don't know who else he should be thinking about. He has sworn an oath to care about the interests of the American people. I just don't think it enters into his mind. It's kind of a weird thing, isn't it?
Then he'll just talk cavalierly in a cabinet meeting. Oh, I'm just going to blow up Oman. Like, you're just
Yeah.
going to blow up Oman. You're just going to say you're going to blow up Oman. The country that was the mediator, whose foreign minister is known as someone so influential in the Middle East, who created the deal in principle that then Trump and then Netanyahu went in and invaded Iran. You're gonna blow up Oman. Maybe it's the rhetoric like that that made Oman say, you know what? Screw you. we're going to join with Iran now and not you, and we're going to control the Strait of Hormuz and both profit, and then we'll have China step in as our guarantor in the Middle East and not you. Maybe it's rhetoric like that that's kind of that's cause and effect.
Well, and look what Iran has done. I mean, there are probably fewer than a dozen pinch points in world shipping, like the Strait of Hormuz. Not all of them oil, but other critical supplies go through them. You've now given everyone the textbook on how to create leverage on waterways in the world and affect the global economy. And if we haven't learned anything in the last 3 months, you can't shoot your way out of this. You can't kill everybody. You can't, it's not possible. And you're going to have repercussions that will last potentially for generations if we don't get this right. And honestly, I don't know how he gets out of this. He's talking about, well, we'll let the nuclear deal, 60 days from now. This is the whole reason you started this thing, wasn't it? To stop a nuclear weapon? You're going to put that off to reopen something that was open before you started all of this. How does that make any sense? How do people continue to listen to this guy as though he's credible? And I hate to be like this. Sometimes when I give interviews, I have to stop myself from laughing. He is such not a serious person. And it feels weird to talk about it in conversations like this as though he is serious and that this is legitimate. This is not legitimate. The American government is legitimate. Donald Trump is an illegitimate president, not because he didn't get enough votes. I don't want to hear people writing to me how say he didn't win the election. He won the election, but his presidency is not going to be deemed legitimate by historians because he's made such a mess out of the job he is supposed to do and seems to care virtually not at all about the interest of the 344 million Americans who he's taken an oath to defend.